Hey guys, Fabio here of My Own Defender. I've got my Beretta 92X mounted, of course, with my Holosun 507 comp. I want to answer some questions about grip. Tons of questions that come in about grip. Here are some of the common ones. Should I hook my trigger guard with my support side, right? Should I hook my trigger guard that way? Should I be in the front? I've seen some people do that, right? So people say, should I do that? Okay. Other questions that come in is how much of my trigger finger should be inside on top of my trigger shoe? Should it be at the pad, at the tip, at the knuckle? How much of my finger should be coming on the support side panel? Should it be all the way in, some of the way in? How much of the trigger support side grip should I be taking with my support side hand? Should I have my thumbs forward? Should I have my thumbs up? Can my thumbs touch the slide? Those are just some of the questions that right off the top of my head I can remember hearing in just maybe in the last few weeks, right? And I tried my best to answer all those individually, but because there's so much interest in grip, I just want to answer some of those like this. Your grip has a specific job. Your grip is supporting the idea that the gun will return to the same spot and not swivel inside your hands. That's what your grip is trying to do. Your grip is trying to be durable through a long string of fire so that it doesn't start to fall off the back or your support side doesn't start slipping forward, right? Because then the gun starts behaving unpredictably. It doesn't behave like something you've seen before, which starts to create all sorts of tension and problems, because if the gun is not behaving the way you like, probably the first thing you're going to do is to add dominant hand pressure to keep the gun from behaving in a way you don't like, and that usually tends to be even more problems because then you start pushing into the gun. Other problems come up with tension. So if the job of the grip is to maintain the gun inside your hands so that it's not swiveling inside your hands and the gun is returning very in a predictable pattern, then all of those other questions need to be tested to support that very idea. So it's not that you're supposed to do this person's grip or that person's grip or this much pressure on this side or that much. This is a testing ground for you, your grip size, your hand size, your strength. All of that is going to matter. What caliber you shoot, what size muzzle do you have, like how long is your barrel, is it a 3-inch snappy gun, is it a 5-inch steel frame? They're all going to behave differently. And I think the only way for you to answer those questions is to understand the job of your grip. The job of your grip is, again, to keep the gun from moving inside your hands. You cannot let it do that, because if it does that, it's going to start slipping and moving away from that consistent place. Also, the gun needs to be returning in a pattern that is predictable. Some of that will be the eyes and where they're looking, but the rest of it is going to be how your grip structure, where you interact with the grip of the pistol, and the grip strength, the pressures around the grip, that stay consistent throughout the shooting sequence so that the gun behaves in a manner that you have seen a ton of times through training, right? So instead of asking questions like, should my finger be here, should my finger be there, should my thumbs do this or that or the other, you need to be thinking, does my gun, as I'm shooting, as you're testing your grip through longer strings of fire or aggressive shooting. Again, don't test your grip through plinking, like, one shot every 2 seconds. That's not going to test your grip. You need to be shooting somewhat aggressively and pay attention to what's happening. How does my gun return to where I'm looking? Does it come back in a very similar or identical pattern? Does it come back from the vertical side? Does it swoop in left and right? Does my gun do one of these things? That means that the grip pressures are changing. Do I shoot and then I see like this kind of vibe, like where the gun is returning from below where I just shot or I was looking at? If the gun is behaving in a pattern that you don't recognize, it's not predictable, it's not something that is reliable and will continue doing that through an entire magazine per se at speed, then you need to adjust some of those things. Does hooking my trigger finger around the trigger guard actually support what I'm trying to do? Does putting my thumb forward support what I'm trying to do? Does putting my thumb back support what I'm trying to do? Does locking my wrist one way or the other support what I'm trying to do? How can I get my equipment to behave the same as much as possible, or very, very predictably? Like maybe it has slight tiny variations. That's what you're trying to squash out in training. But if your gun is behaving in a different way every single time you press the trigger, or if your gun behaves completely erratically and crazy when you're shooting at speed, That's what you're trying to sort out. And you sort that out by actually shooting at the pace you want to be shooting, and then paying attention to those things. Oh man, maybe if I go a little bit higher on the back strap of the gun and leave no room there, maybe start getting a little bit of that fold, that may be a good solution for the gun being really as high as I can hold it. We can tend to agree that that's one of the possible solutions. Where my fingers interact with the gun so that I don't steer it left and right might be a thing you need to look at. How much pressure you put on the support side, how much room you leave in the back, how much of your palm starts interacting with even just a little bit of the back strap of the gun, right? My support hand, if you'll see, because I have dialed it in to have a little bit of swells or whatever, you have got my lock grip swells, I am able to actually put some pressure on even the back of the gun with my support side hand. And so those are all things that you can sort out for yourself if you're paying attention and you understand the job of the grip. When you start asking all those minutia questions, I think you're missing the point. The point is, for your equipment, there might be different solutions. There might be some variables that you need to input. If an instructor is telling you, hey man, there's only one way to hold the gun, this is the way, and if you don't do it this way, you're gonna, have problems or whatever. I think they're making a lot of assumptions, and not every single gun is going to need or want the same exact things. The concepts are going to be the same. The concept is, I'm trying to get the gun to behave very predictably in a manner that I understand, I've seen before, and I can shoot aggressively. It's very durable. Like, I can shoot 22 rounds, 24 rounds, however many rounds I have in the gun, very aggressively, and the gun will continue returning the same way, and then my grip was going to stay in the same place. Like, my structure from shot 1 to shot 24, whatever, is going to be exactly the same. If you're paying attention to those things, then those other variables you might start adjusting to make sure that the gun does that. The grip isn't something that's you're not supposed to be paying attention. This is one of the things that people get stuck on. Well, my gun needs to be super flat. Like, my gun cannot rise at all, and that's why I know that I have the very best grip. I'm gonna say this: I don't really pay attention to how much the gun rises. I don't really care for that. I do care how the gun returns, how quickly it returns, and how predictably it returns the same spot I'm looking at. I don't really care how much it rises. Now, the byproduct of the good pressure and good structure on the gun will be that the gun probably doesn't rise in a whole bunch, but that's not what my goal is. That's not a principle that I'm trying to be after. I'm trying to figure out, how can I get the gun to behave the same way over and over again, because then if it's behaving the way I've seen before, I can shoot very aggressively. When I'm trying to keep the gun flat, per se, you're going to start having all this tension. You're going to start having this like driving force with your body, with your structure. You'll start craning your head. I've seen all these things in classes where people are like, yeah, my gun's super flat, and then they're like into the gun, and the shoulders are up, and the elbows are locked, and you're doing way more than you need to keep the gun behaving predictably. And that's really the goal. You're not trying to, your goal isn't to keep the gun flat. Because when you start trying to do that, driving the gun, keeping, all that stuff starts to come in, all that tension starts coming in, you cannot shoot on the move very well with all that tension in your shoulders and your elbows and all that stuff. And so if you can't shoot on the move, why are we even trying to shoot a static? Because anytime it matters in any kind of shooting scenario, whether it's competition or self-defense or whatever, people are moving and shooting. It's very rare that we get to stand and shoot and we get our posture and our stance and all that stuff. So let's have the grip support the idea that we want to shoot very, very aggressively without the gun moving around inside our hands. Let's not violate that. We also want the gun to behave in a way that we've seen over, and it repeats over and over again. That means it's returning the same way, and it's something that we can control based on where we put the hands on the gun and how much pressure we put on each side of the gun. If we don't violate those rules and we have a predictable moving gun, we are going to have more success, rather than all these other things. My finger needs to be here, my thumb needs to be there, my whatever needs to be there. Those things ought to be what you sorted out for yourself, what you sorted out for how your grip interacts with your gun, the grip size of the gun, the hand size, the finger size, all that stuff, the pressure you're able to exert on a gun. All those things are going to be much more personal than some instructors make them to be. And so I want you to think about the purpose of the grip and how those little parts, the thumbs and the fingers and the grip panels and all that stuff, how they support the goal, how they support the concept of what we're not trying to violate in shooting. I hope you find that helpful. I was trying to keep this kind of short, but don't be so concerned with the technique of the grip. Be more concerned with not violating the concepts of the grip. If you are shooting and you watch video of yourself shooting and you start seeing separation between the trigger guard and your support hand, trigger guard and your dominant hand, right? You start seeing the gun swiveling inside your grip isn't durable enough. And if you start shooting aggressively, the gun is going to start swiveling out of that nice structure and pressure around the gun that maintains the gun coming back to the same place. So you need to pay attention to those things. If you're interested in the concepts of what the grip is supposed to be doing, I think you will find that you will sort out your grip way faster than any technique specifically can give you. Now, some techniques, are they helpful in guiding you in your experiment of finding your grip? Yes. And so you go to classes and people give you some thoughts about, I hope, so they give you some thoughts about grip and what might be a non-negotiable, like being high on the back of the gun, that sort of thing. But then there's other negotiables that you need to sort out for yourself, and you will, but you do need to put in the work. And this, when it comes to grip, it needs to be tested in live fire. I am a big dry fire proponent. Drawing to a good grip, reloading to a good grip, those are amazing things that you must figure out in dry fire, so that in live fire you're not wasting a bunch of rounds. But when it comes to are my hands structurally where they need to be, and is the pressure adequate on whatever side that you're trying to do, that is going to be sorted out in live fire. And it's going to be sorted out in live fire in I would say in an aggressive pace, so that you can test the pace that you want to be able to shoot. And the pace is not boom, boom, half a second to a second shot. It needs to be more like 20s and 25s, which is, about a quarter second. I think somewhere in there you're going to start having challenges, and that's what's going to help you sort out the kind of pressures you need, the kind of structure you need, and what to pay attention to, so that the gun is returning that very predictable way that we keep talking about. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, leave them on the video, and let me know if you want to hear about something else shooting. Leave the ideas in the comments. Get after it.